when the intro does that because I don't know when to start talking. Good morning, guys. My name is Debbie. Welcome to my channel. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Judy. I don't know where everybody has been this week. Last week we had 10 to 12 people, and this week we've had 3 to 5. But I appreciate you guys so much. And I love my replay crew and I love my lurkers. So, hey, Marty. So, I am just happy that anybody is here at all. We are on part 28 of the Betty Broderick trial, the second trial. The first one ended in a hung jury. I don't, for the life of me, know why. Well, I think what it was is that her story was that she was on her way, that she went over there with the gun to unalive herself in front of Dan. And I think that was the hung jury, because I think some of them thought she did go over there to unalive him, whereas other people on the jury thought that she went there to unalive herself in front of him and then changed her mind at the last second, which I think is a crock of poop, but whatever. The second jury got it right, in my opinion. And we are almost done. We are on the state's rebuttal case, which announced, I thought we were still on fence yesterday or day before, I don't know. Thought we were still on the defense's case, and I was like, this is not good for her. Why did the defense call this witness? And then Judy was like, no, this is a prosecution witness. I was like, oh, it would have been nice if they told us that there was a rebuttal case going on. Hey, Wiggles. I need to put my eye drops in because my eyes are, look, my eyelids are even swollen. My eyes are swollen. I need to put my eye drops in. They're not watering, but they feel like gritty. Okay, where are you? I wrote it down. Where's my pad that I wrote it down on? Dropping stuff. Hey, Carla. Yay, it's Friday. Friday. Okay, so we're on Dr. Dietz, part 3. I've actually enjoyed this expert witness, which I don't enjoy very many expert witnesses. Excuse me. Probably the ARCA guys and the Karen retrial. Probably the only time I've ever really enjoyed an expert witness. Let's see. Them, Dr. Curry from
Can you go back out now?
Johnny Depp's. There's a Dr. Russell from the Karen retrial. Other than that, I don't think there's any expert witnesses that I've liked, because you're just so. Why did my computer just reboot the website? Good gravy, Marie. I thought I have at least one decent day this week. Oh. It loaded the page that I didn't ask it to load yet. Computer, even my computer wants me to quit talking. That's bad when your computer's telling you to shut up. It's like, let's just get this show on the road. This has been the week from hell.
Read that and tell me if that then showed the clues.
I have a different passage on the relevances of having it read it this one.
I'm just asking if there's anything in there. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, so it says.
I don't think I said anything about this in the testimony.
Well, I know you didn't say anything about it. What you said is you read it and you picked out a few examples. Was that something that was totally devoid of these clues that you've seen, or is that another piece of the evidence out of that book that shows clues, either that she's looking for some striving for perfect, or this gothic love, or
This one I wouldn't know how to interpret without knowing where the concept came from. Perhaps that was part of what was being talked about there. I'd have to speculate to know what this means.
so there was nothing in that passage at all that you saw that was the clues.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Sir, is normally when the field of psychiatry, when you're looking at somebody to determine whether there's signs of a disorder present, do you just pick out the ones that confirm it, or do you look at the other ones that don't have any evidence and say, well, here we have one that says there's nothing here and one that says that it does?
You look at both, and of course in this case there's a great deal of information at many points in her life of there being nothing wrong with Mrs. Broderick.
Okay. So for someone to be able to make that determination of whether there really is a disorder, if you're finding clues going through these letters, these subtle clues, you also need to be able to read the other ones to understand whether there's a lot of evidence here that there is no disorder. You do both, don't you?
A psychiatrist tries to look at all of the available evidence in coming to any kind of clinical or forensic opinion.
And I take it that you relied on that whole marriage encounter when you read it. I mean, you didn't read the marriage encounter and say, I'm only going to rely on the parts that find that there's evidence. You rely also, you test your hypothesis and rely on both the ones that show it and don't show it.
The whole book, just as I read jail records and testimony from the divorce trial and many other things. But what I relied on in my testimony was evidence of particular kinds of psychopathology and the lack thereof in other ways. And I testified to the lack of psychopathology in much of this book.
So once you find a personality disorder, then when you look back at evidence, if there's no clues in it, or if there's no signs of the personality disorder at the time, that's because their needs are being met.
If someone has evidence that indicates that they have a personality disorder, and if that's the diagnosis given, as for example, Dr. DeFrancesca gave the diagnosis, Dr. Goldspan gave the diagnosis, and I think they're both right, then one can do nothing more than retrospectively see what evidence, if any, there was for it in the available data from other periods. And most of the data available is post-1983. That's the data that shows these exaggerated behaviors that get labeled personality. There are a few examples of the same sort of thing there. But I think I've maintained all along that there is not enough evidence for this to show that she had a disorder at the time.
Now, you've read one of the things that you reviewed with Gary Levinson's notes as to his conclusions. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And Gary Levinson, when he reached his final conclusion of bipolar affective disorder, mixed type, hypomanic phase, borderline personality disorder, he dictated that report almost a month after she left the hospital. Is that correct?
March 1st.
Almost a month after she left the hospital.
That's right.
Yeah. So it wasn't that when he dictated the report, he had had the benefit of having her in the hospital for a number of days, having a number of interviews with her, as well as having the test. Isn't that correct?
He had done a consult on her in the hospital. Then the care was transferred to him for a day or so. And he had the test result and the letter saying that the test might not be reliable.
Well, the letter actually said the test might not be reliable, but you're going to have to look at things going around her at the time. We don't have enough of a history.
That's right.
Okay. But you testified that the tests are meant to do long-term functioning. That's the basis of the test. Objection Vegas of the test.
Overall, if there's only one test getting for this.
Is the test long-term functioning? In other words,
That's what it's designed to.
yeah. And do you do your own testing or do you have someone else do it?
I usually don't have it done at all because you get so many misleading results.
So, you're not someone who you would have problems with reading the results from a test and saying this necessarily applies to them just because it's a test. In other words, may I withdraw the question, Your Honor?
Sure.
At the time that you get a test, you do a test, there's a computer printout that tells you these are the things to look for, isn't that correct?
For some of the personality inventories like this, that's one way they can be scored. But many people who want to rely on the results will hand score them themselves or have someone in their own office do that so that they feel they have quality control.
Okay. And you're saying that one of the problems with these tests is you feel that they have some unreliability in them.
Well, there are many problems. I mean, the first reason I don't have occasion to use them is that they really only need to be used for one of two reasons. One is there's a diagnostic question. There's some issue that one can't resolve. And there are times, especially about brain disease, where testing is the only way to resolve a problem. But for personality, there are always other ways to resolve the question besides testing. You can take a detailed history, you can obtain records, you can find out what other people have to say. There's always better evidence than psychological test results of personality if one has resources to obtain it. The testing is a shortcut to the person's past. in forensic work, usually we have the opportunity to look at the evidence, and so the testing isn't needed. Secondly, even where there is a question for which testing would be the best evidence, like an unresolved diagnostic issue, there are problems about whether the person has honestly answered questions, not all of which kinds of deceptions are detected. People can easily spot some sorts of questions where they know it's advisable to lie and make themselves look worse than they are or better than they are. Educated people or people who've read psychology books can even fill out the forms in such a way to make themselves look like they have whatever diagnosis they want to appear to have. And even if all of that's done honestly and truthfully, there are still problems that arise from scoring errors and from interpretation errors and from which norms are applied to the test. And that's just the beginning of why I don't typically use test results.
And so you don't even use it as one of the factors?
If there is a question that can't otherwise be resolved, it might be very important. And I will look at tests that other people have done to see if there's something useful, but I rarely rely on them for much.
And it's your opinion that Dr. Levison relied completely on the test rather than his interviews and his observations?
Well, I don't.
Is that
I'm not in his head. I don't know. All I know is that what the record shows is zero other evidence to support it except that test.
Well, he had an interview with her, did he not?
And the fruits of that, as recorded in the chart, show no other evidence of her being manic.
Well, he talked to her husband, did he not?
Yes, he did.
Did you see some notes in the records where her Dr. Zudimer had, he talked to Dr. Zudimer, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And Dr. Zudimer indicated that Mr. Broderick said that his wife needed help because she was having a large problem with depression, didn't she?
I'd have to see the act. I remember Dr. Zudimer quoting Dan as saying a number of things about Elisabeth Broderick.
Well, sir, I understand that, but can you answer my question, then you can redirect it whatever you want. Was there a response from Dan Broderick? Was there something in the records that indicated that there was a record that Dan Broderick said that she was having a problem with depression?
I object, number one, to counsel's characterization, the argumentative nature of the question. Secondly, if he wants to show the doctor a record, let him produce a record and show the doctor a record. What are you talking about?
Well, first of all, objection's overruled. If you remember, doctor, you can answer it. If not, go on from there. If you remember seeing such a thing in Dr. Zudimer's notes?
I remember seeing something that said what Dan had to say about Mrs. Broderick. One of those things was depression, but it wasn't the language that Mr. Early just cited to me.
And obviously, you knew that Dan Broderick was a doctor, didn't you?
Yes.
And he would have some training, might know something about depression.
Objection assumes that's not done.
Overruled. You can answer that, go ahead.
There should have been a time when he knew how to use the term technically. Whether he continued to, I have no way to know.
Well, you've indicated Elisabeth Broderick should know some things since she was the wife of a doctor. Obviously, Mr. Broderick would even have much more knowledge than she would about medical things, would he not?
Yes.
Now, you also indicated you used the term scratch. Elisabeth Broderick, when she tried to commit suicide in 1983, you said she scratched her wrist. Remember using that language?
Yes.
Okay. Did you review the testimony of the plastic surgeon that examined her and testified about the scars that were still present on her wrist?
I'm familiar with the testimony of how difficult it was to detect them.
Well, he indicated that that he could still see the scars on her wrist, didn't he? That he was still able to see them.
I think with magnification.
He was still able to see the scars on her wrist.
Objection, he's misstating the that's the last round, Your Honor.
Well, the doctor's answer stands.
You remember that it was with magnification?
Right.
Do you know where he saw her?
Pardon me?
Do you know where he saw her? Do you know where the exam was done?
No, I don't.
And your memory is that it was only with magnification that he saw him?
That's my recollection.
And he also testified that he looked at the scars on her legs from the surgery as to her varicose veins. And said,
That's not relevant.
Same.
well, you knew that she was somebody who it was hard to see scars. She healed very well, didn't you? From the testimony?
Objection. State's that's not in evidence.
Same.
Did you consider that when you called it, when you were talking about scratches? Did you consider the testimony that she is somebody who heals very well? It's hard to see the scars, and there are scars there.
I considered the fact she was still alive as being much more important than that.
But it was your opinion that what these were scratches that left. That was your opinion. That was how you viewed it. They were scratches.
I think scratch is a far more accurate characterization than slash.
The when Elisabeth Broderick was brought to the hospital in 1986, were you aware that she was telling people there was nothing wrong with her? She wasn't depressed. She wasn't didn't have any problems.
I was aware that she said her main problem was that she was angry at her husband, and on another occasion said the only problem she had
It
was...
would appear to be depressed to anybody.
That's right.
Nothing to indicate that she wanted to appear to have some kind of personality disorder.
That's right.
Nothing to indicate that she would have a motive on a test or in her conversations with anybody to try to make herself seem worse than she was.
Objection is, this witness would not know what her motives would be in that.
Sustained.
I just realized I didn't read Judy's trivia. I'm sorry, Judy. In November 1990, Kim Rhett and Dan Jr. sued both Betty and Lee for wrongful death on behalf of Dan. Why'd they sue Lee? Like, I know that Lee was on their mom's side, but why sue Lee? Because she didn't have anything to do with her dad's death. The file for the suit is only available by visiting the San Diego court microfiche system. The disposition is not publicly known. Huh. Why Lee? That's weird. Well, I ain't going all the way to San Diego to figure it out. Why? Is it because it's civil you can't get it with a FOIA request? Dang, now I want to know deets. No fair. Oh, I didn't say hi to Jennifer. I didn't see her. Are you still in here, Jen? Good morning. Carla, road trip.
So there's nothing in the records that would indicate to you that she had some kind of motive to make herself look worse.
Of course, she'd just committed an action that could have been charged as a felony. The vehicular assault on Dan's house, the arguable, the various characterizations of her attack against him face to face, the questions as to whether she had a lethal weapon in the car and what she did with it. In a lot of states, a normal person would be taken to jail and there'd be eventually a trial about committing a crime like that. This was diverted into the mental health system very early. And when we see people diverted into the mental health system after their crimes, sometimes they get the picture of what they're supposed to do.
So it was your belief that she was trying to convince them that she was mentally ill?
I don't know what she was trying to convince them, but she wasn't taken to jail like most people would have been.
Well, do you know whether that was her choice or not?
like they asked, which would you rather do? Go to jail and be treated like a criminal, or go to a hospital and be treated like a mental patient? I think they took her to someplace that was decided by people other than she.
And can you show me in the records where the evidence that she was trying to show that she was mentally ill, depressed?
Objection, that's not his testimony.
Sustained.
One of the results was they saw her as being hypomanic at that time and still requiring hospitalization. Isn't that correct?
I don't know who you're asking about. The nurses thought she was friendly, smiling, and fine, but angry at her husband.
Did the doctor indicate that she was no longer seen as being suicidal or homicidal, but continues to be hypomanic in need of continued psychiatric hospitalization?
Which doctor are you referring to?
Dr. Levinson.
I would have to see the chart. My notes reflect other things he said. He may have said that as well.
Was there a condition on discharge that you wrote on her chart? Really represent that?
Yes.
The, can you tell, when you have somebody who has a personality disorder, one of the things that you frequently see with a personality disorder is either agitation or depression. Is that correct?
With a personality disorder? No, it depends on which personality disorder. Depression actually can occur secondary to any of them, but not agitation.
Okay. So they can be seen when there is a major depression is associated with them, is often associated with them.
No. Depression is what I was saying. Depression is very different from major depression. Depression just means somebody has been sad. Major depression refers to a specific diagnosis for which there must be a sufficient number of signs and symptoms simultaneously for a long enough duration to warrant that diagnosis.
Do you not see many of the features of personality disorders during an episode of other mental disorders such as major depression?
There are examples of things that depressed people can do that would be like the behaviors of people who are personality disordered. But as a rule, that's not so, no.
Well, does not the DSM-3R indicate that many of the features, characteristics of the various personality disorders, such as dependent, paranoid, schizotypical, or borderline, may be seen during an episode of another mental disorder, such as major depression? Is that true or not true?
That's true.
Yeah. Does it not indicate that one of the associated features of a personality disorder is disturbances of the mood involving depression or anxiety? You
I
indicated that
testified to that
anxiety,
yesterday, yeah.
so it's true that anxiety is one of the things that you can see associated as associated feature of a personality disorder.
Sure, I mentioned yesterday in my testimony that when people have a personality disorder, they can get sad, they can get anxious, which is nervous, they can get angry. These things can all happen when people have personality disorders, as can every other emotion.
The, when you go through there are also criteria for the borderline personality disorder, is there not?
Such criteria exist.
Yes. One of them is a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternating between extremes of over-idealization and devaluation. That's one of the criteria?
Yes.
Okay. In this case, there was times where you would see Elisabeth Broderick talk and people in very over-idolized fashion, and then examples of where she would devalue them the next time.
Yes.
Their impulsiveness in at least two areas that are potentially self-damaging. Spending, sex, substance use, shoplifting, binge eating. That also includes use of, for instance, spending money. Is that correct? Spending money they don't have? It's one of the characteristics.
No, but you read the list and then you added some language of your own.
Okay, well, it says impulsiveness is at least two areas that are potentially self-damaging. Spending is one of them, is that right?
Spending sprees, isn't that the language? I don't have the language with me, but spending is one of them.
Okay. Would you like to look at it so you know if it's spending spree or spending?
That's all right.
Okay. And overeating is another?
Binge eating.
Okay. The next one is affective instability, marked shift from baseline mood to depression, irritability or anxiety, usually lasting only a few hours and only rarely more than a few days.
Yes,
Okay. And you see some rapid changes in her moods, do you not?
that's right.
Okay. Inappropriate, intense anger or lack of control of anger, frequent displays of temper, constant anger, reoccurring physical fights.
Yes,
That was something that you would see in her behavior.
some of Mrs. Broderick's behavior could be seen that way. As I testified yesterday, some of these criteria, you could take the same behaviors and classify them as histrionic or narcissistic, or you could classify them as narcissistic or borderline. It makes no difference in the end which of the labels one uses, because these are all interrelated. Antisocial, borderline, histrionic, narcissistic are related that she's been consistently thought to be.
Suicide behavior.
Borderlines do that.
And you would find that in Elisabeth Broderick?
Well, you don't find exactly that, but there are lots of episodes of homicidal threats. There are a couple episodes of her mentioning that she knows that suicidal threats can be used manipulatively. And there are...
So it's not true that you find that there's reoccurrent suicidal threats or gestures or behavior? That's not something that you would find in her?
Well, it's marginal, but maybe. I mean, that's one of the themes for her. The way I interpreted it is as histrionic attention-seeking, because people who are histrionic will do things of precisely the kind she did, whereas with borderlines, what one expects to find is they're making deep cuts longitudinally in their arms. The histrionics will often make a crosswise cut on the wrist, leaving parallel marks on the forward surface of the wrist, whereas in borderlines, typically the wounds are made longitudinally on the legs, on the thighs, on the upper arms. And so, because of the nature of the wounds that Mrs. Broderick self-inflicted, I thought they were more in keeping with the histrionic sort. I didn't see her do any of the borderline kinds of self-destruction.
Dr. Goldspan called her slashing of her wrist a suicidal gesture, did he not? Wasn't
Yes.
that his testimony? It was a
I
suicidal
think so,
gesture?
right.
And this says suicidal gestures. So you disagree with Dr. Goldspan as to what a gesture is?
No, as I told you before my testimony, I think this could be called a suicidal gesture. You see, this is why Dr. Goldspan would point out the problem with DSM-3R in court, that the use of it requires making judgment as well. It's not the legalistic, what's the meaning of this word approach, but a judgment about the pattern of behavior that's required.
His word, was it not? Suicidal gesture?
Yes, and that's one way to look at it, but this, in my judgment, is not borderline self-destructive behavior.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's time for the morning recess. And Mr. Irwin took our morning recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we in recess until 5 after 11. Give you enough time? You recess until 5 after 11. Please remember the admonition.
While we're switching videos, I want to ask you guys something. The widow's words murder trial, I think it was Iowa v. Karina Cooper. Remember, she had the young boyfriend with an accomplice? His scene is this morning at 10. He pled guilty and then testified against her. Do you guys want to watch his sentencing?
Were you able to see the notes as far as Mr. Broderick's description of his wife when she first saw Dr. Zedemer?
I was able to see what Dr. Zedemer had said had happened sometime before that admission.
Okay, and that was that she was having some extreme problems with depression and acting out.
When he first took her there, yes.
When you reviewed Dr. Nelson's testimony, he indicated that depression was significant that he saw. Is that correct?
Wasn't that the they said that the whole
I thought Dr. Nelson said that depression was not
Dr. Now, when you reviewed Dr. Nelson's testimony, he indicated that he saw this. Is that correct?
I thought Dr. Nelson said that depression was not the primary issue for her.
Well, did he indicate that it wasn't pathological, but it was significant? Remember his testimony about the depression?
Your Honor, I've asked
Say it,
for show the transcript.
Well, if he doesn't remember, then I'll show him the transcript, that's all. Page 735. His answer.
You know, I am so glad it's Friday.
And that's your reading that he felt it was statistically significant?
He's talking about how many standard deviations from the mean.
Now,
He goes on in the same sentence to say that it's not the overriding issue in her personality.
but it's a feature of her personality. Is that correct?
Well, not of her makeup. See, people with any of the, and there were times Mrs. Broderick was depressed.
But she has been at least diagnosed at the hospital. The final diagnosis was one of, on axis 1 of bipolar depression, was it not?
No, it was a bipolar mania,
Okay.
which is the opposite of depression.
Was there a diagnosis by well, was the bipolar affective disorder mixed? Is that correct? And that she was in the hypomanic phase at that time.
That's what they said, right? And based on what they knew,
That's all I'm
I may
asking.
have believed it, but that we know that's not so.
But that was their diagnosis at the time.
Based the life they saw right after ramming the door, that's what they thought.
Okay. And then there was another diagnosis given. Dr. Jacobson also gave a diagnosis, did he not? Jacobson, I'm sorry.
Yes, he said, well, I'm not sure what his ultimate diagnosis was. I saw that less than a month before ramming the door, he wrote, "As for now, Betty keeps busy enough to not be seriously depressed."
At some point, did you get any information that well, first of all, what is the definition of the bipolar disorders?
Bipolar disorder is diagnosed when someone has had one or more manic episodes. This is a change from the older idea of manic depressive illness. It used to be thought that, well, what is now thought is that there are conditioned bipolar illness in which people become manic, and they are then at risk of being people who will become depressed. Mania is a condition in which people have excessive energy, feel too powerful, don't feel a need for sleep. They have increased energy, increased sex drive, may do various things to excess, and may also become psychotic. If someone has had an episode of behavior that meets a particular list of criteria for mania, then they receive the diagnosis of bipolar, but it doesn't mean that they have ever been depressed. You can be bipolar without having been depressed.
Okay. Some of the areas for manic is that or manic episode is inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, is it not?
That's one.
Okay. More talkative than usual or pressure to keep talking?
Yes.
Okay. The flight of ideas of subjective experience, thoughts that are racing.
Yes.
Do you see those at all in Elisabeth Broderick?
Well, they may have to consider that. There are times that that she was very energetic. There certainly was evidence of her having some grandiosity. None of it reached the proportions that I think qualify for a manic episode. It was the duration of this cluster of features such that I think it would apply. I don't think anyone ever said that they thought she had a true manic episode, but at the time of that hospitalization, they thought she was hypomanic. Now that's a label that would be given to someone who's just very energetic and talk fast. And it's not an indication of lots of highly functional people who are hypomanic.
Well, she had, but that wasn't her final diagnosis, though, was it? Hypomanic.
I thought they said bipolar disorder mixed type hypomanic phase.
Yeah, the phase was hypomanic that she was in.
Right, and that's the only time anyone ever thought she was even hypomanic, let alone manic.
And you're saying that would be a diagnosis that you would give access one, it only happens one time?
If someone had a manic episode, that would be a bipolar diagnosis on axis 1. Yeah. Pardon me?
Sorry for interrupting.
In the absence of other explanation for why they acted that way.
Well, would that be a diagnosis as a bipolar? You would give the diagnosis that you,
If what?
if there's only one episode. That's it. No evidence of other episodes. That would be a diagnosis you would give.
If someone had one episode of true mania, it would be correct, ruling out other causes of that behavior. Give a diagnosis of bipolar, yes.
What is another external stimuli. It's another factor that you would look for. Is that correct?
It is. That's one. Of course, Mrs. Broderick never had. Nothing distracted her from her quest.
Okay. So whatever was on, she was looking at things, there was never where she would divert her attention to things that were irrelevant to her quest.
She was quite single-minded about getting revenge against Dan and Linda.
Excessive involvement in pleasurable activities, including buying sprees. Would that also be one that you would look at?
That's a feature of mania.
You didn't see any buying sprees on her part.
It looked like she was always buying.
And what would be the definition of and when they talk about the mood, is it not true that the predominant mood disturbance may be irritability and may be most apparent when the person is thwarted?
Yes.
The one of the associated features is that the person does not recognize that they're ill and they resist all efforts for treatment. Is that correct?
That's a feature of many conditions. It's true in mania as well, because they feel on top of the world and everything's perfect. They don't want to give up the symptom.
Another common associated feature is rapid shifts of mood to anger or depression.
In mania? Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
Yes.
The depression may be expressed by tearfulness, suicidal threat, often days or rarely days.
May I see what you're reading from?
Yes.
Those are associated features, not criteria for the diagnosis.
Okay. And sometimes the depressive and manic symptoms can occur simultaneously, or they may alternate rapidly within a few days.
That can happen.
When we talk about major genders, the symptoms include disturbance and change in weight.
The associated symptoms
Of a major depressive episode.
that may happen in a major depressive episode. Of course, that's not the most common cause for people gaining weight.
Okay. But that's something that may happen.
Yes.
Change, sleep disturbance,
Yes.
difficulty thinking or concentrating,
Yes.
reoccurrent thoughts of death or suicidal ideation or attempts,
Right.
when you have, are you familiar with the term suicidal gesture?
Sure.
Okay, now there are times that people make an attempt or make a gesture as suicide that is not just to get attention, isn't there?
There are other reasons for suicide attempts and other reasons for suicidal gestures besides getting attention, yes.
Okay. Sometimes you have people who do suicidal gestures, they'll have thoughts about wanting to die as a solution, but also have some very strong feelings about not wanting to die, to live. Isn't that correct?
That's something that can happen.
Okay, and that can have some effect about maybe where they might not be successful, or they may not do a very serious attempt at suicide. Yes.
Yes, they may do various things to prevent it from being a real attempt.
Okay. And it may be part of the association, and maybe that they have a part of them that wants to die, and also it may be a way of getting attention or manipulating somebody. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it could be all of those things at once.
Okay. When we talk about impairment in major depressive episodes, there's various degrees, is there not? There's various
Correct.
types of criterion that you look at.
There are particular levels of severity that are described in the manual.
You can have a major depressive episode, and there is a code that you would then put as to the level of the severity. Is that correct?
Right. These aren't used most of the time, but the code's available.
And one of the codes is mild, few if any symptoms in excess of those requiring a diagnosis. Symptoms result in only minor impairment or in occupational function or unusual social activities or relationships. That's one, is that correct?
Correct.
And even though you would have that, you can still have a major depressive episode and still have the mild, what appears to be mild symptoms to the outside world.
Not just the outside world, you can have a mild case of it.
Okay. And then there's moderate, which is symptoms or functional impairment between mild and in excess of those required to make the diagnosis, and symptoms markedly interfere with occupational function or with social activities or relationships with others. Isn't that correct? That's what severe is.
That's right.
Okay. And when we're talking about severe, that means that somebody whose depression might be bad enough that they might not get out of bed or might not keep appointments or not go out socially because they're depressed. That would be more the severe category. Interferes with their social activities.
Well, the cause of impairment in one's functioning has to be the depression.
Yes. Okay. Someone who may stay in their room at times when there's other people
But she didn't do that.
around or go off by themselves, that would be something that would be more of the severe because it interferes with their social activities, if it's related to the depression.
Someone who's severely depressed will often be withdrawn, will be unable to speak. People will have to come into the room and ask them if they're hungry and encourage them to eat. They'll have to be spoon-fed in food. Some of the they will let themselves waste away being encouraged to eat. May not have the energy to walk to get food. Won't have the energy to walk in and get completely withdrawn that way.
They'll find themselves walking.
Now that's a more histrionic sort of behavior.
That's not has anything to do with depression.
Holding oneself up, walking.
No, not have the energy. The people will find themselves going to a room and just sitting down or leaning against something just because they do not have energy to do things. Going to the bathroom.
That can happen, but the real point is they feel too fatigued to do anything. Just feel absolutely overwhelmed and drained. Don't put on clothes. Don't feel they have the energy to tend to the chores. Don't feel they have the energy to do any of the things that they really ought to be doing.
Okay, and you can see that sometimes in their appearance, letting themselves go, not attending to themselves physically.
For prolonged periods of time, right?
Yeah.
And again, for it to be major depression, there have to be enough of these symptoms, I think it's 5 or more, simultaneously, every day for weeks.
Well, doesn't the DSM-3 say almost every day?
And I think I've said that many times in my testimony too, every day or nearly every day.
Okay. And now, people who also, when people have some severe or are suffering from severe depression, different times of the day can give them different energy levels, can it not?
When they're suffering from what?
When they're suffering from severe depression.
Well, if they're suffering from a major depressive episode, time of day can make a difference. When it's severe enough, they may be incapacitated all day long.
Well, we go from severe to, then after that we go to the next phase with psychotic features, is that correct?
That's not another phase, it's a separate dimension as to whether or not people are psychotic. The assumption underlying the question is still be psychotic, that even though mostly functioning, one could still think that one's guts were rotting from the inside, or that the world was about to come to an end, and yet still function. But I think that truth is, think that everything horrible is happening and develop delusions. And certainly anybody who's got those kinds of delusions, I would call psychotically depressed and severely depressed.
Well, there's examples of people who have severe depression who function. Mike Wallace, for instance, is someone who has said that he's functioned, done interviews, been severely depressed, doesn't even remember what he did, but was on TV doing major things.
Well, he's not using the DSM-3R language when he calls that severe. He's describing his own estimate of severity, psychiatrically, technically. But it's true that there are people with major depressive illness who function very well. Abraham Lincoln suffered from it.
And are you familiar with William Styron?
Not his diagnoses, no.
But are you familiar with who the person is?
Sort of embarrassed to say, I'm not sure, but I think he's a novelist.
Yeah, from Sophie's Choice, he also wrote Out of Darkness.
I don't know much about him. I've heard the name.
Yeah. You're not familiar with his writings about suffering from depression and getting Pulitzer Prize, showing up, functioning on a day-to-day basis.
They're as set forth in DSM-3R.
Okay.
To have the, I'm sorry,
Every day for as you indicated, a 2-week period.
right. But it has to be a prolonged period. It's not arbitrarily really 2 weeks, but there has to be a prolonged period of this multiplicity of symptoms simultaneously.
Okay, so it can be it can.
That's right.
Okay. The significant weight loss or weight gain, that's one, is it not?
Yes.
Insomnia or hypersomnia nearly every day. Fatigue or loss of energy every day.
Right.
and some recurrent thoughts of death or recurrent suicidal ideation without a specific plan.
Right.
Okay. The now, when you were going through the does the feeling of helplessness or hopelessness, is that a concept that is in the area of depression?
Depressed people often have those features.
Okay, and what does that mean?
The perception of helplessness is the feeling that one really hasn't got control and that one can't take care of oneself. The feeling of hopelessness has to do with one's perceptions of the future and the feeling that the future doesn't hold out hope, that there's nothing to look forward to. It can occur in depression.
All right, stop it.
The break, we were talking about cyclothymia.
I wasn't.
Okay. Was there a diagnosis at some point of that? Or at least from Dr. Jacobson?
Yes, that's right.
And what does that mean?
Cyclothymia is the condition of some moodiness in which one will have days that one feels very energetic and enthusiastic, maybe excessively so, wanting to take other people out after work, wanting to do more than you expect a person to want to do. And other days they're feeling down and leave work early or don't feel like they have much energy or think things are bad. But it never reaches the extremes of being a major depression or, in the other direction, a manic episode. It's a more minor vacillation of moods between feeling better and feeling worse. It's not incapacitating. Medications usually aren't even used to treat it, and it's a fairly common condition.
The when you look at Elisabeth Broderick's personality disorder, I take it that you feel that it colors her way of looking at things. Would that be a good description?
It colors your way of responding to things.
Okay. And some of that, the way she responds to it, some of it is maybe based on prior incidences that she's been involved in, or that have happened to her.
That's true for everyone, yes.
Okay. When you read her diaries, did you run across any writings about the fact that, where she talked about hiding the affair and problems with Dan from the children, and that was going to be something that she didn't feel she wanted to do anymore?
I recall at least one mention of that. I don't recall where it was.
You indicated that there were some examples of manipulation, and those were ones that you remembered with the children. Is that correct? Remembered some manipulation with the children?
Got many, many examples of manipulation with the children.
And that's something that happens in courses of time, does it not?
Well, not to this extent.
But
But,
it happens
Sure.
in what, isn't there?
yeah,
Okay. Both sides can manipulate the children by putting them in the middle.
yes.
There is, you found within her examples of lack of empathy.
I found evidence that she lacks empathy, yes.
Now, some of that to at least circumstances that have happened to her. Overreact in the future to those things. In other words, if there's a set of circumstance that something has happened to her that's bad, she might overreact to that in the future by not having empathy towards her reaction might have towards.
Concerning herself with how other people will feel about what she does to them.
The one of the at least in your diagnosis is the fact that she was preoccupied with envy, looking for how Dan and Linda were living. Looking at Dan and Linda as to their lifestyle and envious of that.
Right.
Your Honor. As you can stand.
The fact is that during this period of time, she was going through litigation with them, wasn't she?
Not for the entire period that she was feeling envious. Well, I guess there were some unresolved issues still.
Okay. Well, until 1989, there was no resolution of any of the property matters, was there?
At the time of the homicides, I thought a lot of things were resolved.
In the 1989, January of 89, up until the 5 years or 4 years up to January of 1989, she had been through a divorce where there had been no resolution, where the property issues had not been resolved.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't think, it misstates the evidence, I don't think it's the thing on that.
Sustained.
Well, when you're looking at how someone reacts to something, whether they're envious, one of the situations is that there were, that you looked at, wasn't there, that there were property issues that were being litigated? Isn't that correct?
Not exactly. I mean, I was aware of the litigation. I don't know all the details of it. What I relied on is the knowledge that whatever those issues may in fact have been, we see a preoccupation with envy. For example, her becoming upset that Dan was taking Linda to the Blackstone ball instead of her. That was nearly 2 years after the separation. Regardless of what's resolved about the property, that's still an indication of envy, or her anger at
Well,
Dan and
first
Linda
of all,
for getting married
Can you show
the
me
same
that?
month Dan had. And what's that? That doesn't have anything to do with same month to marry in. April, that's envy. And there's a litany of these things. Even getting upset that Dan and Linda would so much as consider having children together. That's not about whether the litigation on the property was over.
Isn't that also normal things that happen to people, that when you plan to have a 20-year anniversary, where you plan to have a trip on that, and the person gets married almost the same weekend 20 years later? That's also can be hurtful, can it not, to somebody?
You bet. All of these sorts of things can cause pain, can cause upset, but she over-responds. She doesn't just get upset or she's on this campaign of revenge, intimidation, harassment up till the day she kills them.
Well,
That's not normal.
okay. And you're saying that, that there was no stress involved in the litigation that was going on?
Of course it was stressful. It always is.
Okay. And will the stress of the litigation affect how somebody looks at it?
Objection, that's beyond what he's testified to.
Oh, Rose, you can answer that.
Stress will affect how people feel.
Of course, one of the things you have to look at is what's happening to the person. On an ongoing basis to find out why they may be continually upset. Do you not?
Objection, we've been over this area.
Everybody that got divorced would kill their spouse.
Just asked and answered, sustained.
Okay. You have to in the diary, in diary number 1, did she write about the decisions that Dana was on her own?
Would you show me what you're referring to?
She talked about,
Because I'm going to object to copies when I read the diary entry unless Mr. Dr. Dietz relied on that particular entry.
Sustained.
well, Dr. Dietz, you went through the diary and you picked out a few passages, but you indicated that reading the whole diary gives you a flavor for this person. Is that correct?
You get a very good idea from the entire diary of what she was complaining about during the time she made notes in the diary.
Okay.
But I only relied on portions of the diary that I thought showed something specifically relevant.
Well, so that if she had diary entries that talked about things that were happening to her throughout the divorce, that might have had some effect on why she might be enraged or bothered.
She was responding to.
Okay. So those were things that you considered.
For each of the things I relied on, I was aware of what she thought was the cause, why she thought everything was someone else's fault. There's never a time that she thought anything was her fault, and so there's always something she's blaming for it, and I knew what those were.
Well, last year when the question was asked by the district attorney at the trial, did you take responsibility for what happened in the divorce? She
StreamYard, what are you doing? Knock it off.
said, I take 50%. I take half the responsibility. Didn't she say that?
I don't recall if she said that or not.
Okay, we're gonna stop right there. We are on Dr. Dietz, part 4. And we are at timestamp 4731. Okay. We will finish up his testimony on Monday, I think. And right now we're going to go to... Sorry to say Tennessee. We're not in Tennessee anymore. We're in Michigan now. I changed the title from DTE imposter because I figure maybe people outside of Michigan don't know what DTE is, because I didn't know what DTE is. So now I'm going to call this the imposter home invasion murder trial. So we're going to go to Michigan to the imposter home invasion murder trial, and it should redirect you, and I will see you over there in a few minutes. So if you're going to join me over there, I'll see you in a few minutes. If not, thank you for coming out to watch the Betty Broderick trial, which we will continue on Monday. Hopefully we'll be done with it by the end of next week. And have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you then.